Everybody, today we're going to continue the TT-02 Type SR build. We're going to be working on steps 18, 19, and 20, which are the front axles. This is actually going to be one of the toughest parts of the entire kit. There's a lot of small components to the front axle, and it's pretty complex. There's quite a few things, and a couple steps actually you need to do before you get started. But first, as always, let's go over the parts that you're going to need. For step 18, you need to find these black ball connectors. You need to find these bearings. I believe they were all in the same, the bearings was in the same bag as it's probably in the bag that you've already opened. The MB11s are these blue washers right here. The wheel axle is easy to find. That's these right here. The cross joint look like that. And the pins, we all know what the pins and shafts look like. The joint pipe is right here. The axle ring looks like that. And you need to find these body pins. For step 19, you need to find these flathead screws and these gray ball connectors. And MB13 and 14 are different thickness, but they actually go to the same step. In the build, and I was only able to find MB13 in my kit on the 0.5 millimeter ones. You're going to look for these flange tubes, and there's two sets. Two of them are going to be 4.4 millimeter, and two of them are going to be 3.9 millimeter. On step 20, you need to look for this grub screw. You need two of those. Those are those right there. You need to find the adjusters. These are basically rod ends. You need to find these turnbuckle shafts, which I have them right here. And these shafts, I have them right here. They're the ones with a little notch in the middle of it. And I'll show you what that's for. And then you also need to find these red urethane bushings. They're easy to find. So, and you also need to find, obviously, the axle carrier and also the uprights. So those are the parts. Let me adjust the camera angle. All right, before we do anything else, I want to point out there's two little steps that you may want to take care of before you start building. And that's right here. If you look at this diagram right here, you will notice that it's asking that we shave off a little bit of the hub carrier. And if you look at them like this, I've already taken care of mine. And I don't know if you can see that, but I took a hobby knife and shaved a little bit off of both sides. And I don't want to show you how I did it because it looks very dangerous. And I managed to do it without hurting myself. But whichever way you choose to do it, either with a Dremel or with a hobby knife, I just want to show you that it can be done. And it can be done safely. I just don't want to demonstrate how I did it. The second thing you need to do before you get started, and I recommend you do it before you get started, it asks you right here to basically punch through this hole right here. And what this hole is actually for a grub screw to fasten the pin in one of the later steps. You'll see it in step 20. So there's a flat spot here in the shaft that we talked about earlier. And when the shaft goes through and into the arms, you actually put a grub screw right here. But for whatever reason, this hole isn't drilled through to the hole here. So you need to drill that through before you get started. And I would do this before you start building so that you don't have to complete stop. As you can see here, there's quite a few small pieces here. You don't want to be holding on to it or having to set it down and to take care of stuff like these two. So you definitely want to do that ahead of time. So everything we do here, we're going to do twice because it's going to say make 2. So let me grab all the parts. So for this part of the build, you need to find these parts that I have right here. And what I have found is that it's asking you to put this all together and grease it all up, and then a little bit later on, just right below that, it asks you to put on the axle rings. And I'm actually going to do one side at a time because it's going to be nearly impossible to hold everything and put it all together. And I'm just going to dry fit everything. I know it's asking for grease, but I just want to dry fit everything, make sure I know exactly what I'm going to be doing before I slather on the grease here. So just like that. And the reason I say you want to do this one side at a time is because there's quite a few pieces, moving pieces here that you have to hold on to. And I don't imagine it's going to be very easy to put this ring in. So, okay, everything is going to be something like that. All right, now let me get that out and go ahead and grease this. And it's asking for grease basically all over, and I will oblige. Try not to get the manual dirty. Alrighty. Let me push this piece out and put a little grease on that as well. Alright, and just spread it around. What you don't want is obviously friction. Alright, I'm going to slip this back on, make sure the hole is still aligned. And I can see daylight right there. You can still see daylight. And now I'm going to push the pin through. And wiggle that. Okay. I got one piece of it done. Let me go ahead and wipe off some of that. Need to wipe off some of that grease. Otherwise it's going to get all over the place. Okay. And now I'm going to put this ring in here. And the direction is important. So I'm going to flip this over like so. And I'm going to try to get that notch into that hole right there. So without any special tools, which I don't have, I'm just going to try to spread this by hand and try to lock it in there. I think the best thing to do is to push that through the hole and then spread it from the other side. Okay, I think I almost got it. All right. Okay. So that's what it's supposed to look like. See, if I had already put in the other side, it would be kind of difficult to hold all these pieces and then try to put that ring on. So, like I said, I recommend doing one side at a time. Okay, so let me go ahead and just grease this up. This is not my favorite grease, but like I've been doing, I want to build this kit with everything that came inside the kit, without, anything aftermarket or something you need to go out and buy. I want to show that you can build a kit minus the servo and the receiver. You can build the whole kit with just whatever came with it, without putting in any more money. All right, so what you want to do is make sure that the pin's going in the same direction. So the pin went in there, so I'm going to put it there on here. And let's see. Oh, first try. I got it all the way through on the first try. So now the ring will go into that hole, which is the same as the other side. Okay. So it's going to come in from down here. And like I did before, I'm going to lock it in first. I'm going to put the pin inside that hole first. Let me show you from this angle. Okay, you can see that that ring is in there right now. And I'm just going to spread it around. Just like that. It's tedious, but it's not all that difficult. And just let me wipe off some of that excess grease. Okay. Just like that. Wasn't that hard. So let me go ahead and put together the next one, and then we'll put the... Okay, I got the axles put together. So one of the first things I'm going to do is actually put in... I'm going to see which side I carved out of, and I'm going to put in the ball joints. Let's see. So this one is the MB5. The MB5s were the black ones. And put on that blue washer. And I need to get that on there. I'm going to use my 2mm hex wrench and hex driver and put that in there. Okay, I need to get this pin ready so the axle doesn't drop out. And I'm going to put the ball bearing in and push the axle through. Looks like the bearing, okay, they're all the way through. You can see the hex nut pin would actually go right there. And it's asking for the body pin as a holder to prevent it dropping out while you're building the rest of the car. So there's one. Let me do that again for the other side. And you notice the notch that we carved out is there. So the notch is for the bottom, obviously. So same thing. Put the bearing on there. Push that all the way through. And put the body pin in. It's going to be a little bit harder, but I will put this on. Did not forget. You can do either sequence. Okay. All right, so we have two lovely uprights, front hub carriers. Let's go ahead and move on to... All right, step 19 is the most difficult part so far in the whole manual. First, we need to notice that these two uprights are actually different. There's a right and a left. In the manual, 4 right is here and 4 left is this one. And if you notice, there are 4 printed right on the side of the upright. So you want to make sure those are identified and correct. So we need to make sure this dog bone goes through that hole and then put the sleeves on into there and as well here, and then there's a washer top and bottom. I'm having a little, this is my third try. I'm having a little bit of trouble. So let me see if I can demonstrate this properly for the camera. So the bottom one is the 4.4 millimeter one, so it's a little bit taller than the other one. And you're just going to set that in there. And for the top one, you're going to set that there. You need to make sure that the dog bone goes through. And before you lock everything in, you need to slide a spacer in there. But before I do that, I'm just going to go ahead and put in that flat top screw, flathead screw into there just as a placeholder. I'm not going to tighten it all the way. I just want to make sure this doesn't fall out. Okay, am I making any progress? Yes. Okay. And then now I need to figure out a way to slide a spacer in there, and then as well as on top, and then put the 9mm ball stud on top. So I'm going to go ahead and put this onto the driver first, and then I know I need 2 of these washers, spacers. I need to slip one in there, so let's use gravity. Let me grab a hobby knife, and I don't know if you can see that. Try to push that all the way down. And somehow I need to get a spacer in there. I don't know how I'm going to accomplish that. I don't think there's room for it. This is really bizarre. Oh yeah, there is room right there. I don't know if you can see that, but there is a little bit of a gap. Okay. Press that in as far as that will go. Okay. Maybe it'll help if I tighten this. Let's see if it'll help if I tighten this all the way and kind of push it down. All right. Not really. Okay, so I still need to push that washer in there. I'm just going to peel it open a little bit. All right. This is quite tough material. I don't think I'm going to snap this just by prying it open a little bit to push the washer in. I want to use gravity as my friend. There we go. Now you see that or not. Okay. Just gonna push that in there. That looks like it's close to center. Okay. And I need another one on top here before I put that ball stud in. So I'm going to just go ahead and slide it over the ball stud instead. And push that through. Okay. All right. And that's that. I still have articulation, left and right. This is going to connect to the steering link. So I want to make sure I have full flexibility, left and right, so I can steer. This is a completely different setup from the standard TT-02, of course, where as you'll see in the next steps, these uprights actually sit on top of the arms, whereas the TT-02 actually just hold on to them like so. But we'll go over that when we get to the step. I'm going to go ahead and take care of the left side, 4L, off camera, and then we'll move on to step 20. All right, the second axle was actually pretty easy to put together after I figured out what was the best way. Let's set those aside. Let's go ahead and look at the parts that we need for step 20. You need to find that grub screw, which is that right there. Need to find the rod ends and the turnbuckles, the shaft, and these bushings. All right, so for this part, I actually have this little tool right here. I got this off of a 3 Racing kit, and actually this helps you hold on to the rod ends while you turn them, and it comes in really handy. So go ahead and start this, and then I'll bring in the pliers. And if you don't have a set of these, I recommend you get one. If you're going to be building kits, this shock plier, normally for shock rods, you can use, obviously you can use it for turnbuckles, as I'm doing right now. Comes in very handy. All right. Okay, let me just show you the manual right here. On this side, it does say that the gap between the rod ends need to be 15 millimeter. So let me get both rod ends in there, and then I will break out the calipers. Oh, I forgot. This side, you want to go the opposite direction. And the reason is, if this is your first kit, I'm going to go ahead and explain this. If this is not your first kit, you can obviously skip this part. But this is actually going to hold on. These are going to act as the upper arms, and it's going to hold on to the uprights, as you can see right here. And what this rod does, or this allows you to do, is to adjust the camber. And the camber is the angle of the wheel in relationship to the ground. And if these two rod ends were both clockwise, when you go to make adjustments to this, it will just tighten one end and loosen the other. And you would not get any effect of shortening this rod from the chassis to the upright. So one side is clockwise, one side is counterclockwise. So when you go to turn this, it's actually going to make the entire rod either longer or shorter, thus adjusting your camber angle. And that's why. So keep that in mind when you're putting these together. I'm going to go ahead and put the other one together off camera, and then I'll bring in the chassis and finish this. All right, I put the other one, and there's a couple of things you need to watch out for. One, it shows here that you want the side with the circular notch, it's kind of hard to see, to go down onto the ball stud. And these are actually alternating. One needs to face down, one needs to face forward towards you. And don't forget, you need to make the width between the two 15 millimeters, and this one currently is 15.8. And another build tip is the side, the rod end side that's closer to the hex here, is clockwise, and the one that's further away from the hex is counterclockwise to tighten. So I want to shorten this a little bit. I'm going to turn this end counterclockwise to tighten it. And I need to make sure that it's in alternating directions. And let's see how close I got. 15.2. I might be able to just get it a little bit closer. I think if I go a full half turn, it's going to be much shorter, but let's take a look. Let's take a look. There we go. Okay. And I think this one can also go a full half turn to make it 15. Oops. There you go, close enough. It was 14.9 before it blanked out. So we need to pay attention that that notch right there go towards the ball stud, and this side goes towards the ball stud. Okay, let's bring in the chassis. Here we go. We're working on the front side here. All right. Let me go ahead and set this down so we can still see this. So let's go ahead and work on the right side. This is the front, this is the right side of the car. And we're going to set this in there just like so. But first we need to put the bushing in there and also apply grease. So first thing, let me just put that bushing in there. Let me push it in with my hex driver. And then also prep this and put some grease on the end of the dog bone here. I'm going to put that in there. Okay. I'm going to set that onto the arms and push the rod through. The rod has this notch. I want to make sure that it faces down, and I'll show you why in a second. There you go. I want to push this all the way through the upright. Okay. Get through one side of the arm. Just a matter of wiggling it and pushing it to the other. Let's see. All right. Okay. I had to make sure the orientation. Okay. There we go. And the reason why I want that flat spot to face down is because I need to put in this grub screw now. I need to put in this grub screw in the hole that we drilled through. And I need to find the 1.5 millimeter hex. Okay. There we go. Make sure it's more or less centered. And go as far as you can without applying too much pressure. And what you want to do, the purpose of this is to capture that pin, that shaft, so it doesn't move our back out on you. Okay, so that's how that's set up. And it's okay if that came out, because we're going to put this on there. And let's look at the directions real quick. So the turnbuckle, when you put in the turnbuckle, you notice the hex is on this side and it's also on this side. You want to make sure that they're both on either side of the car. You don't want to have this hex over here and then this hex on this side. Reason for that is when you go to make adjustments to lengthen or shorten the turnbuckles, whichever direction you turn on both sides, it's going to do the same thing. Then there's no guesswork. If you want to lengthen this one by a quarter turn, you would turn it down. If you want to lengthen this one, you would also turn it down. If they were alternating, then you have to remember one is down and one is up. So that's the reason why in most cars that they're always facing the same direction. So I will follow that as well. All right, so we're going to put on the turnbuckle, and let's go ahead and put this side down first. And then we'll put it onto the back of the damper stay. Have to make a little bit of adjustment, but we want to make sure the dog bone is into the outdrive. Okay, and you can normally just do this by hand. And I want to show where the other one goes. It just goes onto there again. Make sure the dog bone is in there before you snap this together. Don't know if you saw that. I want to make sure you see where it goes before I put that in there. It's hard to keep my hand out of the way and get into the shot. Okay, all right, that's it. So the turnbuckle is on both the damper stay and on the upright. The pin is fastened with the grub screw. I have good articulation. There's a little bit of play. I might shim that later on. It's not part of the manual, so I don't want to do it. So let me go ahead and do this side. Exactly the same. Put the bushing in there, push it in, put some grease on the dog bone in here. Going to set this in there. So don't need to worry about that in there right now before we put the pin in. I'm going to wiggle this pin in, hopefully with the notch side down. Push that through. All right, I got it all the way through. I think I have the wrong pin on the other side. This one is flush, the other one is sticking out a bit. I probably have the wrong pin. That's okay. I will replace it. We all make mistakes. And okay, I think that pin is captured nicely. All right, let me flip this back over. Make sure the dog bone is in there. Going to make sure the orientation is correct, and it is. Okay. And that's it. Let me change this pin out and we'll wrap it up. All right. I'm actually kind of glad I made that mistake because it just shows that if you don't pay attention to the manual, you can easily make that mistake. So it turns out that the shaft that you do need is 22 millimeter, and the other ones are for the rear arms. So pay attention to that when you're building this. And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something and you found it amusing that I made a mistake. And if you did, please give this video a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.